Hello everyone! Today you will hear a short recap of the movie Notorious Nick, a film about a one-armed MMA fighter based on true events. A one-armed man named Nick Newell stepped into the cage to fight an ordinary opponent, and immediately started taking heavy hits. His rival showed no mercy, striking him with fists and kicks until the referee stopped the fight. We go back 15 years earlier. A bully once snatched young Nick's prosthetic arm, but the boy instantly hit him in the face with it. Even then, Nick knew how to stand up for himself. That day he met Abby, a boy who, just like him, loved wrestling. Nick was born with a congenital amputation of his left arm, so he never knew what it was like to have both limbs. But could that stop him from chasing his dream of becoming a professional wrestler? 9 years later, the friends took wrestling seriously. Nick's condition was still a reason for jokes among bullies. One day, a girl joined their training and easily pinned Nick to the mat. Humiliated, he decided to quit the sport. Everyone was laughing at him, but his mother convinced him to keep going. Abby had always dreamed of owning a Harley Davidson, and finally bought one. The coach knew Nick needed more attention and specific guidance. "See, your left hand stays behind your head. You'll only use your right," he said. Nick was quick to learn, and with the support of his friend and mother, he kept improving. Stacy, his mother, was saving money for nursing school. Abby became the team's most promising wrestler and had just defeated a rival from another school. Now it was Nick's turn to step onto the mat. Abby helped him fasten his helmet and wished him luck. It seemed Nick had no chance of winning. His opponent mocked the one-armed wrestler, and Nick once again lost confidence. So, Stacy arranged a meeting with a famous baseball player, Jim Abbott, a professional athlete who also had one hand. Jim inspired the boy, telling him to follow what he loved, but warned that he'd need to work twice as hard as everyone else. Later, Stacy learned from the coach about a special summer wrestling camp and spent all her savings to send Nick there, believing it would help him grow. However, Nick was upset when he found out his mom gave up her own dreams for his sake. He trained hard all summer and came back to the school team determined to prove himself. Nick challenged Shelby to a sparring match. If Shelby won, he'd quit the team. The match started tough, but eventually Nick pinned his opponent to the mat. Shelby had to keep quiet after that. The time came to perform at the school competition. Victory was especially important for the team that day. Nick focused, summoned his fighting spirit, and lost. Frustrated, he ran outside and burst into tears. The coach asked him to come back and fight in the consolation round, but Nick just went home. 5 years later, the friends were sitting in a bar drinking beer. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Nick accidentally bumped into a man who immediately attacked him. Abby intervened, putting the guy in a chokehold. He told Nick he was planning to enter an amateur MMA tournament. Since both of them were wrestlers, it was a solid foundation for mixed martial arts. And besides, the fights paid well. Nick decided to sign up too. The winner would earn $500. The only problem was, he had no idea how to fight. The promoter called Abby into the cage. Abby fought a bit in the stand-up, then took his opponent down and submitted him. Impressed, the promoter asked Nick to show what he could do. A black fighter refused to fight a disabled man, but when Nick called him a jerk, the man snapped. Nick absorbed punches with his face and body, but as soon as he managed to take the fight to the ground, everything changed. The opponent got caught in a chokehold and couldn't do anything about it. Unfortunately, only one fighter could move forward, and Alex chose Abby. In just a month, Abby was set to fight in an amateur promotion. Nick was deeply grateful to his friend. Abby had supported him all his life. Nick's father had abandoned the family when he found out his son was born with one arm, but now he suddenly wanted to reconnect. Nick thought it over and decided to give him a second chance. When he got home, he heard terrible news. Abby had died in a motorcycle accident on his Harley. At the gym, Nick furiously punched the bag, shouting in anger and despair. Why him? Why his best friend? The promoter offered his condolences and suggested Nick take Abby's place in the upcoming fight. Alex promised to pay him $1,000 instead of $500, and Nick agreed. The promoter immediately gave him a nickname, Notorious Nick. For Nick, it was a chance to pay his mom back for the money she spent on nursing school. But Stacy was horrified. "Are you crazy? Who's going to pay for your treatment when you get injured? We don't even have insurance," she shouted. Nick joked that since his mom was almost a nurse, she could patch him up herself. Stacy sighed and said, "Fine, go then, but make sure you kick his ass." Years later, Nick met his old coach again and asked him to be in his corner. But Jeremy refused. He didn't work with quitters and hadn't forgotten how Nick once walked out on the team. Now the rookie was about to face an undefeated fighter with 6 straight wins. Stacy came to support her son, and the coach was also in the audience. It was the same fight we saw at the beginning of the movie. The problem wasn't just Nick's arm. He lacked the experience to stand against such an opponent. Even when the fight went to the ground, he kept taking hits to the face. Nick spent the rest of the day in the hospital. Stacy had no idea how brutal this sport really was. She swore she would have never let her son step into the octagon. One day, someone could literally beat his head in. Upset, Nick went to a bar. There, his coach sat next to him and said, "You fought like an idiot, but a brave idiot." Nick asked him to start training him again. Jeremy agreed, even though he barely knew anything about MMA, so they had to learn together. At least Jeremy knew how to get Nick back into great shape. After a week of hard training, Nick stepped into the octagon once again. This time, he had to prove he belonged there. At the first opportunity, he took his opponent down, but the guy quickly got back up. And then, something incredible happened. Nick knocked him out with one powerful punch to the jaw. His next victory came by submission. From there, everything started falling into place. Training followed by fights, and more wins. Missing an arm didn't stop him from climbing the ranks. One day, Nick and his coach came to watch a fight between 2 professionals. When Nick saw his future opponent, Rich, easily defeat a massive fighter, he got a bit nervous. He went to the locker room to congratulate him, but Rich snapped. Rich said he was in a no-win situation. If he beat Nick, people would say he just beat up a disabled guy. To him, Nick was nothing but a publicity stunt to draw attention to the sport. Even though Nick was ranked number 1, Rich's promoter refused to organize a title fight. Jeremy filed an appeal, but it was rejected. So, Nick decided to face the commission himself. His mom came to support him. She declared she'd go to bloggers and the media if her son wasn't given the same opportunities as everyone else. The promoter also spoke up for Nick, saying all his victories were real, against true opponents, not setups. The team finally got what they fought for. Nick was granted the chance to fight for the championship title. Now he had to prepare for the most important battle of his life. The coach showed him a new move, how to escape from a triangle choke and turn it into an arm lock. The key was to wait until the opponent went on defense, and then catch his arm. Nick kept working on his striking technique and pushed himself through grueling physical training. Finally, the night of the championship fight arrived. The coach gave his student a few last words of advice, and Nick thanked him for all his support. Meanwhile, Rich was fired up and ready to tear his challenger apart. Experts didn't believe Nick would last even 1 round. The crowd cheered for the one-armed warrior. That night, both of his parents came to watch. The challenger entered the cage first. When the champion appeared, the arena exploded with applause. At that moment, Nick had 8 wins to his name, while Rich "You're Done" Reynolds had 16. The referee asked the fighters to touch gloves. "I'll show you what a real fight looks like," Rich sneered. Jeremy advised his student to tire his opponent out. But right at the start, Nick took a heavy hook straight to the face. The champion took him down and unleashed a brutal ground and pound. At one point, Nick got caught in a chokehold, but managed to slip out and counter with a punch to the jaw. He got back on his feet and kept fighting. Rich broke through his guard and began pounding Nick's body with furious strikes. The round ended just in time to save the challenger. Nick was gasping for air. He was more exhausted than the champion, but he started the next round strong. The new strategy helped him keep his distance, and everything was going well until Nick closed in on his own. Rich executed a clean takedown and grabbed Nick's leg for a submission. Nick endured the pain until the round ended, barely making it to the bell. Limping back to his corner, his leg clearly hurt. He looked beaten, yet the crowd was now chanting his name. He had proved himself to be a true warrior. After a minute of rest, the fight resumed. Rich was ready to finish it. He took Nick down again and began hammering him against the mat. But then Nick pulled off a rear choke, locking his arms around the champion's neck as Rich tried to stand up. The champion slammed backward to the ground, but Nick didn't let go. He kept squeezing until Rich finally tapped out. The promoter stood frozen in disbelief. His undefeated fighter had just lost to a one-armed man. No one had expected this outcome, not even Nick himself. The coach and Nick's overjoyed mother rushed into the cage. Together, they raised the championship belt high. "Abby, we did it," the new champion said. The film ends with real footage of Nick Newell. the true story behind this incredible fight. We may not cross paths again, so if you enjoyed this recap, hit that subscribe button. And let's keep fighting for great stories together.